This is my truth. Tell me the truth. Tell me my truth. Tell me what the truth feels like. This is my truth. Yeah, truth.
Hi, welcome to this Fishing for the Truth. Today I'm joined by author. Do you ever think you'd be called that?
No.
Author Richard Matthews, who has written this memoir entitled No, I Will, about, oh gosh, well I say it's about raising your son, but it's about so much more than that. Just to sort of summarise, William, your boy is, well now a man, is part of a very elite group, isn't he? He's part of just 0.1% of the male population.
That's right. So Will's now 22.
Gosh.
When he was 5 years old, he was diagnosed as 47XYY. So that means he has an extra male chromosome. So I think what makes it particularly rare for Will is having a twin sister who, you know,
right,
for want of a better expression, is normal, is fine. So so that's Will's diagnosis. Most people sort of mistake it for autism. It's very similar. And quite often people who have a chromosome deficiency will be on the autistic spectrum anyway. But Will actually was never diagnosed as autistic. He's simply XYY. But it did take us, you know, almost the entire 5 years to get that diagnosis. So Julie and I knew that there was something clearly different about Will from a very early age. I think because obviously because he had a twin sister, it was easy to make the comparisons.
Yeah.
Judy had studied child psychology and was a sort of a nanny, and so brilliant with children. And I'd always been surrounded by children and babies anyway. So to us, it was very painfully obvious that there was something, you know, amiss with Will. Whereas Emily was kind of up and walking and talking at sort of, you know, 8, 9, 10 months. Will didn't crawl till he was 18 months old.
Right.
Just had a few words that he sort of said and not very clearly. When you picked him up to cuddle him, he's sort of like a sack of potatoes in your arms. He had very little coordination. So for us it was obvious that there was clearly an issue. But it didn't matter who we spoke to. You know, we go back to see our GP, and he always seemed quite relaxed about the whole thing. Oh, he's just a lazy boy. Girls develop quicker than boys. He's allowing his sister to do everything for him, and that was kind of, you know, we were being silenced by the overwhelming majority, by everyone said the same. Oh, he'll be fine, he'll be okay. But it was like, no, there's clearly issues here. And so I think what helped us was because the twins went to a Montessori nursery.
Yeah. Very
soon after they'd started, we were called in for, you know, the standard parents' evening. And after the headmistress told us all about how wonderfully Emily was doing, which was great to hear, of course, she then went on to Will. And she was really kind. She was really kind with her words, and she was sort of gentle, but it was still tough to hear. She just listed this whole range of things that Will wasn't doing, things that he should be doing.
Right.
But so it was tough to hear. But actually, finally, we had someone on side who was kind of saying, "You're right."
You knew you weren't.
Yeah,
kind of
you're not going.
it,
You're not going mad. You're not imagining it. You know, and also for parents, you know, for me, I always thought being a dad was simple. You know, like you give your children loads of love, you give them boundaries, you teach them right from wrong, and they'll turn out fine. But Will would make, you know, you just throw the rule book out. Will make me question everything. So yeah, to have a professional saying no, you're definitely right. So she wrote a wonderful letter listing all her concerns. So we went back to our GP, and the wheels were then put in motion.
Okay.
But they moved really slowly. So, you know, it was sort of, you know, test after test. And, you know, after 6 months, you know, I'll come to the Child Development Centre at Poole Hospital. That led to an appointment every week for 6 months where they'd monitor him. And while this is going on, you know, obviously part of you wants to get to the bottom of it. You know, you as a parent, you want to know, don't you? You want to know that, and horrible things go through your mind. Has he been dropped on his head? Has, you know, did something go wrong in pregnancy? All those sorts of things you worry about. But at the same time, I was always, I suppose, a little bit concerned about getting a diagnosis. You know, once you've got that, it's a label for life, isn't it? Took about, as I say, he was just a couple of weeks short of his 5th birthday.
Right.
when we were called into Paul Hospital, and we were finally given this diagnosis that he was 47 XYY. And like I say, it was a day of mixed emotions, because you know, you find out what's wrong, and that's great, that's a relief. It's always easier to deal with challenges when you know what they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then, of course, you've got this, our son's got, you know,
Yeah, what now?
He has special needs, he has a label.
Right.
So the head of paediatrics who gave us the diagnosis said, you know, be very careful what you read on the internet. You know, there's going to be all this stuff written about boys with XYY, but most of it was written 20 years ago. They haven't done, you know, well, of course, you completely ignore them, don't you? Sort of get in the car, whiz home,
no.
straight on Google. And yeah, and actually what we read was quite horrifying. So there's been films made about the XYY man, you know, serial killers. More boys with XYY end up in prison.
Right.
You know, sort of low muscle definition, more aggression, less empathy, all these sorts of things.
Right.
And it was quite frightening to read, even though I've been told not to. But there was also that thing in the back of my head that was saying, hang on a minute, this doesn't sound like our son at all. He's 5 years old and he's already shown incredible empathy, amazing kindness, you know, and I mean, he really was. All parents think their children are the best, but he was the sweetest, kindest boy that I'd ever come across. And I think when I look back now, it's easier to understand why it took so long to get a diagnosis, because there was nothing about, apart from clearly there was development issues. I think a lot of children, when they have special needs, they're sometimes a bit isolated, a bit distant, kind of standoffish, whereas Will was the exact opposite.
Right.
He'd open his arms up to everybody he saw for a cuddle, and he'd light up a room when he walked into it. And there was just something, I don't know, something really, really engaging about Will. You know how we all know those people who can just drain your energy when you're with them, and he was the exact opposite. He just would, you know, make everyone feel better. And I think what was completely unique about Will was his honesty. So all children learn really quickly how to manipulate situations and people to get what they want. They learn very quickly, don't they? Emily would quickly learn that she could blame Will for things, and she could sort of get round us and all that sort of stuff. Usual children's stuff. Will had no ability to do that at all. Literally, it was completely honest, never knew how to tell a lie, everything. And that was just beautiful. Tough as well, obviously. Because, you know, you have to be very careful what you said.
You've got some brilliant stories in the. I mean, gosh, the book is everything. It's moving, but it's very funny at times as well. Some of the stories about what he comes out with, or what he came out with. There's I'm going to find it in here. There's a great sort of analogy that you use to try and describe what Will's world must be like. You say, I've often tried my best to see the world as William does. You say, imagine if you were in a very busy train station and all around is boundless written information, signs, adverts, screens, boards, and yet all the words are in a language that you couldn't possibly understand. And then you say, you know they are words, but you have no idea what they mean. In your pocket you have money, you know what it is, but you've no idea what you can buy with it. You know where you live, but no way of knowing how to get there. So it's...
That's absolutely right. With Will, he's, you know, even now 22 years old, he's never learned to read or write, despite countless efforts by us and everybody involved in his education. So I use that analogy, but, you know, I go on to say that actually, of course, he always had somebody holding his hand and helping him to make the decisions.
Of course.
And everyone he saw, he would assume was lovely, and you know, he knew it was a train, but didn't know where he lived, but it might take him to Disneyland or the moon, you know.
Right.
So Will lives in this bubble, you know, where fantasy and reality blur into one. And many people have often said to me, God, I'd love to be in Will's world for a day. I mean, it must be lovely. You know, imagine, you know, having no comprehension of money or time. I mean, literally time is another thing. He's never fathomed that out at all. So
talk about living in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think this is the, you know, one of the, you know, sort of underlying, you know, lessons in the book for all of us is that we're all trying to deal with this mindfulness and use, you know, sort of being in the moment, and Will does that effortlessly. That's Will's world. He just sees the good in everything, and of course he's not ever stressed about being late for anything, because he doesn't know what the time is. You know, he's not worried about money or any of those things. But at the same time, obviously, that throws up massive challenges.
Right.
But yeah, as you say, I've always tried to, try, like anyone would as a parent, trying to understand what it's like in his world to try and make those, make the leaps that he does. Why has he suddenly thought that? It's quite strange.
Gosh, it must be. I mean, even though the book is about Will, it's like he's the son, but there are lots of different people orbiting him, and it's not just about him. It's about the family unit, extended family. I mean, from a personal point of view, as far as yourself and Julie, your wife, Emily, his sister, can you summarise how it's kind of impacted you, or how it's changed you as a person?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'll try to. So I think that's, for me, that was hopefully the controlling idea of the book, that, through adversity, Julie and I have managed to raise this wonderful young man. But the story is really about the difference he's made to all of our lives, to everyone, because he has improved. I think when you have a Will in the family, it's going to do one or two things. It's going to either break you, and it can do, because it can put enormous strain, on any relationships, siblings, all sorts. Or of course it can just make you better people, because you have to learn patience and understanding that. Personally, I never thought was possible. I did when the children were young. I think I was always a pretty good dad, but I was running a business. I was working hard. I was stressed. Getting out of the house on time was it was like a military exercise. And it felt like we were always taking the entire contents of a boots and a mother care with us. And I was impatient. Everything had to be done yesterday. I was driven and I was focused. If I'd tried to stay like that, it would have broken me. You just have to learn to let things happen in Will's time. I think for us, thank heavens we had Emily, because like I said earlier on, I always thought being a parent was fundamentally simple. If you do the right things, then they'll turn out okay. I think having Emily was a constant reminder that we were doing okay. That we were getting it right, at least most of the time. With William, it was, like I say, just throw the rule book out. Nothing I'd ever experienced in my life had given me any experience of how to deal with these things. When you have a Will in the family, it does teach you to be a better person, because you have to be more patient, you have to make time, you have to explain, you have to involve, and it's not always easy. We all have stressful, busy lives, and like I say, over time you learn, and that's really another one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because I've met lots of parents over the years who have children like Will, and in some cases far, far worse. This was never a feel sorry for us sort of book at all. No. Some people have it far harder. But I've noticed that a lot of parents, they never really, especially the fathers, they never really come to terms with it. Some do, of course, but I've met too many who just, it's like that thing they don't talk about. And I think that's terribly sad. Completely understandable, because it can be a real battle. Certainly from my point of view, I was a sportsman. I played a lot of sports to quite a high level. So it's quite natural to understand the kind of son that I would have dreamed of having. I'm going to go and play golf with my son, play rugby, I'm going to teach him to box, And when you don't get that, there is, of course, there is a level of disappointment. But, Will brought so many other, attributes and qualities that, you realise that, I think I'm the luckiest man in the world, so...
Yeah, you mentioned in the book that moment where you the penny drops and you realise you're not raising another one of you.
Yeah.
Which then I would imagine completely shifted.
That was your
perspective.
So none of these are lessons that you learn overnight. They take a long time. And I think that the part you're mentioning there is a sports day. So by this stage, Will has left mainstream school, and we've got him a place in at Bowcroft, which is a special needs school just outside Wimborne. And it was his first sports day. And secretly in the back of my mind, I was really quite excited about this sports day. I thought, well, finally, Will's going to be able to shine, in this environment, And I thought it would do him so much good. I remember those days when I was captain of my school team and holding trophies aloft in front. It does wonders for your self-esteem. It really it empowers you. It makes you want to achieve and makes you want to win. So naturally, I thought, Will's going to do great. So I was looking forward to this sports day for weeks, and when I got there, as I walked through the gates, immediately I felt pretty bad, because it was, the idea of wanting my son to win in this environment. There was children in wheelchairs and some that had far more, severe special needs than Will. Then I saw another dad sort of talking to his son about getting a quick start, and I thought, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not the only competitive parent here, so that's okay. Anyway, so I went and met Will's teacher and saw Will, and he was really excited. Anyway, moved to the side to sort of exchange pleasantries with the other parents, and the teacher then discussed, the sports day, the chain of events that would happen. And the first race was where Will would just have to sort of, they'd put a beanbag on their head and sort of balance it there and try and run 50 metres as fast as they could. So they blew the whistle. A couple of the children cheated and held the beanbag in place and ran up a couple of them sort of dropped it every few steps. Will never got off the start line. He'd sort of put it on and it would fall off. He'd put it on and fall off. But what made it worse is he kept looking at me and then burst into tears and kept saying, "I'm sorry, Daddy, I'm sorry, Daddy," I mean, I felt dreadful, kind of dreadful that it was so important to him to impress me, but also naturally thinking, gosh, what on earth are the parents thinking about me? Are they thinking, what sort of father puts this much pressure on a son?
Right.
Which I had certainly never intended to do so, but he must have felt like an overbearing pressure to try and be like his dad, to impress his dad. Couldn't get him to do the egg and spoon race, but eventually managed to talk him into having a go at the sack race. And once again, he made a few sort of leaps forward and then fell on his face and burst into tears again, and just kept saying sorry to me. I mean, it was really, really, really tough. Really emotional. So I told his teacher that I was going to leave. I thought that me being there was probably making things worse. So I got in the car. And this was obviously, the sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. There'd been this big build-up for ages where, Emily was already riding on a bike and Will was still on the stabiliser, still hitting fences, couldn't kick a football, couldn't coordinate his foot. So
he was
all of
about,
this,
7.5 at this
yeah, so it had been a long time building, all those, things that I was dreaming of doing as a father with a son just weren't happening. And so I probably built this sports day up to far more than it should have been. And anyway, I got in my car, drove up the road, pulled over, and just burst into tears. The floodgates opened. I mean, and it was so out of character. In fact, it was probably the first time I'd cried in years. Like years and years and years. I couldn't remember.
So that would have been 7.5 years worth of
tears. Yeah, exactly.
Tension.
Yeah. I mean, I'd felt, of course, feel yourself bubbling up at times, but this was proper tears, sobbing that was just, it made no sense, and it was like all those frustrations and emotions just poured out. And I remember just sort of sitting in my car thinking, why me? It's just all so unfair, and that's how it felt at the time. It was just, it was awful. And then I remember what I thought was a builder's van driving towards my car. So naturally tried to pull myself together. I thought it might be somebody I know or whatever. And actually it was a Bowcroft minibus on the way back to the school. And as it passed, I was sort of drying my eyes. As it passed my car, I locked eyes with a young girl who went to the school, and I'd seen her before. She had Down syndrome. And she just smiled this beautiful smile. And it was one of those moments when you just realise, stop feeling so damn sorry for yourself. Some parents have it so much harder. So that's when I had the epiphany that I suddenly realised that I'd been carrying this self-imposed responsibility to raise another Richard, or two Richards, William and Emily, like two children just like me, competitive and sporty, and the will to win and all those things, and it was that moment when I suddenly realised this is not at all what I'm supposed to be doing. All I've got to do is raise Will to be the man he wants to be, the best version of himself, and I suppose it's a bit embarrassing that it took me 7.5 years to work that out, but maybe some parents never do. I was
going to say, and what a gift of a thing to learn, though. That's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, no, it was. So I drove home, kind of feeling like the weight of the world had just left me, and again, you don't. It's not like it's not a one. It's not a quick fix. You're always learning. You're always adapting and improving. But as I realised, as I let William just be himself, the job just got so much easier. I wasn't putting so much pressure on myself to make him like me, and Will was happier because he was, and actually Will had qualities that I wish I'd had. I mean, he was hysterically funny. Really, really, really. His comic timing was genius. He was, very entertaining. He could always make people laugh. He cheered people up. I mean, these are amazing gifts, aren't they?
Absolutely.
And
actually, things that you can't necessarily teach.
No, exactly. So, and funnily enough, one of the things that I used to think when I was a younger dad was children with special needs, so they're bound to have something they can do really, really well. And we've seen like Rain Man, so maybe he can count cards at a casino. Maybe he'll just sit down at a piano and play like Mozart. And yet although it was probably nothing quite so specific, it was staring me in the face all that time. Will's gift was his ability to make people laugh, to make people feel better. And actually, there can be no better gift than that, can there? So
absolutely.
So that was the moment really for me when I just realised if I just let Will be himself, and the world got sort of much easier for me as a dad then. And then I was able to really appreciate all of Will's qualities.
Yeah. Gosh, and well, he's got so many of them, hasn't he? I mean, I haven't met him yet. Well, I've met him briefly, but he's going to come and chat to us in a bit. But I feel like after reading No, I Will, I feel like I have a sense of what he's about. Later on in the book, there's quite a sort of vital, sort of poignant point that you make when he's at the Parents' Day for the post-6th, where Sally, the teacher, describes about his unrealistic expectations. Yeah,
so this was much later in school. Like in post-16. So he just moved in. So we used to call it sixth form, post-16. So so he'd moved up, and I met his new teacher, and something that she said, it stuck with me to this day. She said that Will has really, really high self-esteem, which is fantastic, but very unrealistic expectations. And she said to me, so just today, he said that, because they're starting to discuss, career options for when he leaves school. So they said, today he wanted to be a police officer. And what she said is, what we said to Will is, that's terrific. Now we asked Will to sort of work out for himself what skills a police officer would need to do the job. And something just struck me right then, and I realised that, as a parent, this is something I could do, I could improve. Because if Will had said to me, I want to be a police officer, and yesterday would have been an astronaut, and the day before a golf pro or whatever, although I would have said it kindly, I would have immediately said, well, you can't do that because... I'd have said to him, because police officers need to take notes, don't they? And I'd have told Will all the reasons why he can't do something. Mm-hmm. And actually, what his teacher Sally sort of made me realise was that it's far better that Will picks up, learns that for himself. So what I adopted that straight away. So if Will says to me he wants to do something, I'll say, okay, that's great. Now, what do you think you need to be able to do that? And Will works it out for himself. So that was a great lesson. So you never stop learning. I mean, even though Will was probably 16 then, I suppose. I realised I'd suddenly learnt a way to be a better father. So
I think that bit just really struck me, because I'm hoping that this book, obviously I don't live in your world and I don't have a will in my life, but this book I feel is equally as valuable for people who don't have a will in their life as it is people that do, and that is valuable for any parent. I don't have children, but I have a niece and a nephew. Just raising any or being part of any child's life. It sounds so obvious.
Until you realise that you're not doing it yourself. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things, when I wrote the book, I kind of knew that it was a particular genre and it was going to appeal to anybody, who had somebody like Will in their family or friendship group. What I couldn't have realised is how it's affected everybody, like you say, not just all parents. In fact, I know people who haven't got children who've read it, and I was sort of quietly confident that I'd written a book that was going to make people laugh out loud,
absolutely,
and possibly cry at times as well. What I couldn't have known is the effect it was going to have on people, which has been extraordinary. It's really made people stop and reflect, and which is amazing. That's really extraordinary. And just for everyone to realise that that we can always improve as people all the time. And it's as I say, it's not that kind of, you know, the book like, you know, look how good a job I did. It's quite the opposite. I mean, it's very, very honest. You know, I talk about all my failings and all the areas where I you know, I screwed up. But you know, hopefully, if people read it and it makes them stop and reflect and think, then that's great. You know, that's brilliant.
Well, it certainly did for me, which is why I wanted to talk to you about it, and why I can't thank you enough for taking the time. Because any of my videos I do, I think my primary purpose is always to try and open my own eyes and my own mind a little bit, and then in turn maybe it will have that effect for somebody else.
Sure.
But I know that this book, if it makes you see the world differently or be more considerate and inclusive of people, then that can only ever be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when Will was born, I think it's fair to say that the world has moved on a huge amount in 22 years. You know, nowadays we're all far more aware of special needs, mental health. You know, it's so much in the public domain all the time. You know, just when the twins were born, I would have recognised somebody who had Down syndrome. I would have understood somebody in a wheelchair who had a physical handicap. There was no way I would have understood autism, ADHD, any of these things. And I think everybody has moved a great deal. And if my book is just another part of that, you know, helping for people to understand that it doesn't matter what the disability, everybody has boundless gifts to offer the world. You know, everybody does. Funnily enough, when I decided to write the book, the first person I asked was Will. I asked his permission. He was, you know, sort of 18 at the time. I think the book covers the first... Was he 19? Something like that. The book covers the first 19 years of his life, but clearly he was an adult, and I was writing a book about him, so I asked his permission. And the very next person I asked was Emily, because clearly they're twins, and it seems, you know, grossly unfair that I've chosen to write about one of them. Obviously, the book isn't just about Will. It's Emily's in the book right the way throughout. But I asked her permission, and she didn't hesitate. She said, "Dad, I get it. He's the interesting one." Bless her.
You say at the very end of it about special. Wait, let me quote it correctly. Otherwise, I'll kick myself. I've often heard people say that special children are given to special parents. It's a lovely thought, but I don't think it's true. I believe special children make their parents special.
Yeah, so I mean, this idea that, you know, special children are given to special parents, it is a lovely idea, but that would imply that there's a God and all those sorts of things. And you know, everyone has their own opinions, but for me, that's just not how it happens. But what I do think is that, you know, when you have a special child in your family, it's either going to break you or it's going to make you special. And it does, because it does teach you so many lessons about yourself and, you know, about, as I say, patience and understanding and compassion. So certainly for us, you know, I'm really lucky that I had a wife as amazing as Julie. You know, she's incredible.
Yeah,
so,
she even off the page, she reads pretty incredible.
Oh, she is.
Like, wow, yeah. I'd like to know this one.
Yeah, no, she's a force of nature. She's phenomenal. But it takes a team, doesn't it? So,
absolutely.
But no, we've been lucky, and I mean, living in Chettle, I mean, this village, you know, features very heavily in the book, because, you know, it was a conscious decision to move here. A place where, you know, I mean, there's a sign as you drive into the village that says, "Please drive carefully, free-range children." It's exactly the childhood I wanted for them, you know, where they could run around and make camps, and Will could sort of roam around the village, and everyone would sort of have, you know, keep an eye out for him. So, so you know, but so whilst I say we've been lucky, you know, you make your own luck. These were decisions we made.
Absolutely.
You know, to move here, and you know, every job or business I've run, you know, the consideration's always been, I need to be at home as much as I can be to support and help Julie, you know, raising the twins. So,
well, it's a wonderful book.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I will put the links in the video description of where you can buy it. I highly recommend it.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your time.
No, you're welcome. Thanks.
Can we have a chat with Will?
Yeah, sure.
Let's introduce you. This is Will, everybody. Say hi.
Hi.
Hi. So, I've just been talking to your dad about the book. How did you feel when he said to you, because he said you were the first person he asked if he'd mind if he wrote about you. Yeah. What was that? How did you feel when he asked you?
Amazing. Really.
Did you? There was no part of you that thought, oh, I don't want you to write about me.
No, everything's good.
Okay.
We always have our ups and downs, so.
We certainly do.
So yeah, it's a really big achievement what me and Dad have to do, and I really think it's become really accessible, really.
It has.
Yeah.
Do you know, I wonder how many copies it's sold. Hopefully
Yeah.
it'll sell even more now. But
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it, and I think there are so many different kinds of people that are going to enjoy reading it.
Yeah.
I love that picture on the back.
Yeah.
Tell us about. There's a picture on the back of Will in a dog costume.
Yeah.
You have a love of costumes, don't you?
I do, yeah.
So what's that about?
When I dress up for fun, really, and I go down the road and go and see my friends, so I make them happy every day in different costumes, like
How many costumes have you got?
about 20.
No, stop.
Yeah.
Can you list them all?
Yeah, Joker, Nanny off Peter Pan. That's
Okay.
that one. I've got Scooby-Doo, a gorilla costume, a cow costume. I've got Superman, Batman,
Oh my gosh.
camel costume.
A camel costume.
No, a camel.
Camel. Okay.
Camel costume. Then I've got Big Bird, Honey Monster. I've got
Thank
so many. Like,
That's amazing.
yeah.
Do you ever kind of think to yourself, this is the one I'd like next?
Yeah.
What are you going to get next?
Probably a one of the Avengers outfits.
Which one?
Maybe like Captain America or something.
Good choice.
Yeah.
That's so good. So with the purpose of, like you say, going down to the road, seeing your friends, making them happy.
Yeah.
Does making other people happy, how does that make you feel?
Happy as well.
It does.
It does, yeah.
That's so amazing.
And one of
Pirate.
the things, when my dad had a bad day, he went down the road as Big Bird, and his happy face was quite nice to see.
Oh,
Yeah.
So often people will give Will costumes, and I've so I don't even know he's got them. And,
right.
And it's actually, like mentioned in the book, this I'd have one of those weeks, really crap weeks.
Yeah.
Everyone gets them, just a week that I wanted to see the back of,
Mm-hmm.
and then but the only thing I was looking forward to all week was this game of golf, competition on the Sunday. And then the heavens had opened, they closed the golf course, and it was like, just all I wanted to do was get home,
Yeah.
hide up here, open a bottle of wine, but the sun sort of come out just as I pulled into the village, and as I drove through the village, the farmer pulled over in his tractor. No, sorry, I pulled over to let the farmer go by in his tractor, and the farmer was laughing, and I wondered what that was about. And then I could see this vision up the road, about 200 yards away, and there was a sort of 6'5" Big Bird walking through the village. And whilst it was clearly Will, it couldn't have been anyone else. So I put the window down, and Will was just walking past, and I just said, "You all right, mate?" I said, "I love your outfit." And he just said, "All right, Dad," and just kept walking. Literally didn't stop at all, just kept walking straight past me. Just out for a stroll on a Sunday afternoon dressed as Big Bird.
Why not?
Yeah. Why not?
It's making me consider maybe I should get a Big Bird costume. It sounds like fun.
I mean, the other another one was when I came home from work, one of the hottest days of the year.
Right.
I think Will was about 16 at the time, and I thought I'd come home and spend some time with Will. And as I got to the door, he opened the door and he was dressed head to toe as a clown. Sort of everything.
So he's a clown.
The wig, the nose, the bow tie, the
I'll
shoes,
tell you
everything.
about the story.
Okay.
When I was dressed up Scooby-Doo, I said, "Well, I got too hot in Scooby-Doo, Dad." Duh. And then he
That
said,
makes sense.
and then I was dressed up as a clown because I got too hot in Scooby-Doo. So
I said, "Yeah." I said, "Is there any reason why you were dressed as a clown, Will?" And you went, "Duh,
Duh.
I got too hot as Scooby-Doo."
Scooby-Doo.
Practical reasons.
Oh,
yeah.
Different costumes with
Yeah.
different
Obviously,
climates.
Dad.
Yeah. See, I think that makes total sense. Oh dear. So, tell us about your love of music, because that's something that really comes across in the book.
Yeah.
And your dad was talking about that and talking about what a lovely voice. Did you always know you could sing? Because apparently you've got a really lovely voice.
Yeah, I did.
This boy came on Britain's Got Talent and he sang Pie Zoo.
Right.
So, when he released his album, we bought it for Will, and Will had been playing it in his bedroom non-stop for weeks and
Right.
weeks and weeks. But we'd never heard him sing it, and we were sat with some friends one afternoon, and Will clearly wasn't getting the attention he wanted because we're catching up with friends and having a drink, and all of a sudden Will just started to sing Pie Zoo, and our mouths all hit the floor because none of us had ever heard him sing like this. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. And I mean, we're talking about Britain's Got Talent. I'm more of the sort of Simon Cowell kind of father, so I'm unlikely to tell him he's brilliant when he's not. But it was exquisite. I mean, absolutely beautiful. And so then Julie asked Will if he'd like to sing it in the church in a few weeks' time, at Mother's Day service. And so Will practiced every day, and then when he did sing it in the church, it was just amazing. There wasn't a dry eye in the church. It was so beautiful. Yeah, it was really lovely.
Because it's one thing singing at home, and I think lots of people probably sing in the shower, and but it's another thing getting up in front of people.
It really is. Yeah.
How were you nervous at all, or?
I was a bit nervous, but once I got out there and sang, afterwards I was blown away because everybody standed up on their feet and cheered, and it's amazing.
How does it feel when you sing?
It makes me free that I could just spend my wings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do it out. Do it out there. And
nothing else does it quite like music and singing, does it?
No.
It's really special for that.
It's special.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Why should people buy this book?
Well, it's amazing, amazing dad, Ava, and I really think they will really love, because anybody with special needs people would love to see this whole book.
Right.
And there's some funny bits in there and some moving bits. So some bits can make you cry, some bits can make you happy. So it's a cheerful, moving book. And anybody, if you're going to read this, please buy it now.
Well said.
People are going to hire you to do their adverts, mate.
So it's got a bit of everything.
Yeah.
That's what you want from a book, isn't it?
Yeah.
I definitely laughed. I definitely cried.
Yeah.
It's so good. Thank you so much. Thank you for talking to everybody.
Also, if I could sing a bit of PAC to you.
Oh my God.
Well, your voice has dropped now, remember? It's not quite like it was when you were little, but you could do it.
Oh, I'd love that.
I could do it on YouTube. If you put it on YouTube, it would be alright.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can still do that with a voice as deep as yours now.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps.
Thank you.
It's so good.
That's alright.
Oh my gosh, what a treat. I wasn't expecting to come here and hear you sing.
That's alright.
Thank
nice
you.
to see you.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed meeting Will and Rich, who's now off camera. You've been sidelined now.
Yeah, not anymore.
I will put the link in the video description of where you can buy this book. And say bye.
Bye.
Bye. Amazing.
Well done, Will.
Thank you so much.
I haven't heard you sing that in a long time.
Oh my gosh.
I'm glad I've done that.
You didn't even have to warm up. Give us all your best bits.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm just
Oh, Jiggy, already.
Do Donald Duck.
I'm Kermit, everybody. Welcome to the Muppet Show.
Oh, that's good. That was really good.
I've never heard you do that one.
Good.
I love you, Kermit.
It's your audition tape for Britain's Got Talent.
This is fabulous.
I can actually do beatboxing.
Can you? I haven't got any hands to clap. Wait.
Thank you. This is also going to be on YouTube, everybody. So please watch it now up to midnight.
And beyond midnight.
And beyond.
Yeah. We're going to leave it up there for as long as people want. Yeah. I'm Nia, this is Will. We should start our own YouTube channel.
Yeah. All you need is love.
Oh my gosh. That is so true. Do you know that song?
Do you know it?
Yeah. All you need
Is love.
Wah, ba, 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 ba. All you need is love. All you need is love, love. Love is all you need. 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 Oh, such a song.
This is going to be amazing on you. Will this all be on YouTube?
Yeah, the whole shebang.
Wow. Thank you.
I thought you were going to high five me then. Oh, we're going to do one of those. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
Cool, yeah. This is also going to be on YouTube. I'm going to be like, if I get loads of likes, I'll be like saying, Hallelujah!
So will I. Brilliant.